Hello, and welcome to Commonwealth, a podcast brought to you by the Virginia Community Healthcare Association, or VCHA. I'm Tracy Douglas, VCHA CEO, and your host for this episode. On Commonwealth, we discuss all things community health in the Commonwealth of Virginia, amplifying the voices of those who are served by community health centers here and those who serve them. Hello, and welcome to Commonwealth, a podcast brought to you by the Virginia Community Healthcare Association, also known as VCHA. And audience, this is Tracy Douglas, coming to you from VCHA, and I do want to thank you again for joining us. We are so excited for our episode that we're bringing you today and the guests that we have. And I just want to remind our audience that the purpose of this podcast and why you all continuously listen is Commonwealth. Here, we like to discuss all things community health here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we like to bring you, amplify the voices of those who serve and are served by community health centers. And getting right to our show today, we have a fantastic guest. And I know, audience, that I say this all the time, but I really feel that we've been very blessed with the guests that we've been able to bring to this show, to bring you voices coming out of the state of Virginia. And I had the pleasure of meeting this person, a couple of months ago at an event for one of our community health centers. And I pulled her aside and I said, I really need to get you to our podcast. She's so full of energy and has so much great things to say, and she's doing some pretty fantastic things here in the southeastern part of the Commonwealth. So, audience, with that said, I have right now sitting here with me, Collett. She comes to us from southeastern Virginia, and we're going to talk a little bit more about who she is and what she does here in Virginia. But she joined the WAVY-TV 10 Fox 43 News team in August of 2007. She began as a weekend reporter and worked her way up to the morning anchor position in 2012. And she is now the morning and midday anchor. She's a graduate of a small university, and I know this university too when I read her bio. She is a graduate of Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania with a Bachelor of Arts in Speech Communication. You can often find Katie speaking to organizations and students at local schools. She speaks about many different topics. She has a lot of great things to share with people, including journalism, confidence, the power of women, and overcoming obstacles. She believes it's important to motivate all age groups, and I just love that about that. And so we are so excited to have her on Commonwealth today.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Welcome.
I'm so excited. It's great to be here.
Well, like I said, audience and Katie, we really are very excited to have you. And thank you again for agreeing to do this. So, I want to first start off by talking about, and I know you and I kind of touched on this when we saw each other and met each other, but can you just tell the audience a little bit about what drew you to journalism,
absolutely.
Katie?
I love people. And I love to talk, and I love to get to know people. So all of that combined is it's journalism. And so I had thought about it and tried to figure out what I wanted to do. And initially I thought I wanted to be a marine biologist. And then I realized, I'm not that good in biology, so I would do more harm than good. And I was trying to think about what else I was good at. And I thought, when our teachers in high school would give us oral reports, I was stoked. I was so pumped to go to the library, do the research, learn a topic, and then get to present it to my classmates and get up in front of the class and speak. And, I thought long and hard about it. And I was like, I think I want to be a news reporter, but I'm from a little tiny country town. And I was like, ooh, I think people might think I'm nuts, even though truly everyone in my town was like, you are going to be whatever you want to be. And it was a great place to grow up. And then one day my mom said to me, hey, have you ever thought of being a news reporter? And I was driving my car and I slammed on the brakes. My mom's in the passenger seat. We're driving up a mountain. We lived on the top of a mountain. Hit the brakes. My mom's like, what are you doing? And I said, Mom, I want to be a news reporter. I don't know how you knew that. She's like, I didn't know. And from there, it just took off. And I didn't have a plan B. I was like, I'm sticking with plan A and this is what I'm going to do. And I didn't take no for an answer. And here we are.
Right. So then when you went to college and you majored in speech communication, and once you had made that decision, what was your trajectory to get to
it was very humbling to get to that point. I went to Edinburgh, and in my final semester, I had a 15-credit internship, which was such a blessing. I worked at, it was called Cox Broadcasting, the DC News Bureau on Capitol Hill. And I lived in internship housing. So it was like a real world situation where I roomed with 12 other interns, male, female, all races, all religions. We had never met one another before, but we were all in one house and we lived on Capitol Hill. I was able to walk to work every day, to my internship. And it was such a phenomenal experience. And then that turned into, after me applying to 80 some TV stations, and I was either told no 84 times or heard nothing back in all of those instances. I finally had one of the Cox stations in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which was 2 hours from where I grew up, said, yeah, we'll come on in, we'll interview you. I went through a horrific interview process where I was told I would need to lose weight. I would need to bleach my teeth. I would need to cut my hair. And at the time, my hair was long. They didn't feed me. They didn't give me anything to drink. And I was there for about 9 hours. And I got the job and I took it. Because in this business, you have to take it. And the TV station itself was great. It was the news director at that time who wasn't the news director for very long. And then I got that job and I worked as a one-man band in a bureau. So I shot, wrote, and edited my own stuff, shot my own live shots. And then I just climbed up the ranks there, became the morning anchor there. And then I came to WAVY, where I started as the weekend dayside reporter. And then I became the overnight reporter for our morning shows. And then literally every single shift that you can work, I worked. And then weekend morning anchor, weekend evening anchor. And then eventually I became the morning anchor there. So it was it's a humbling process of being told no, of being told I had to change all these things about myself that I didn't have to change. And here we are 20 some years later. And I've been at WAVY for 16. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
For 16, huh? So was it an adjustment? I mean, it's Southeastern Virginia, an audience, if you know Southeastern, it is rural. It's not like what you would kind of consider your typical rural, but we do it is identified kind of as a rural area here in Virginia. So Katie, that being said, what kind of adjustment did you have to make getting used to coming from where you came from in Pennsylvania? And I know where Edinburgh is, and
it's very rural.
That rural, right? And here it is, you moved to Southeastern Virginia. What was that like? What kind of adjustment was that?
There were a lot of adjustments for me. I come from, I grew up in it's a wonderful small town on top of a mountain, but it was, everybody was white, everybody was Christian. Period. That was it. There was no diversity in that area. It's just a small, quaint little farming town. And then Johnstown, Pennsylvania, there was a slight bit more of a mix of people, but boy, not much. And then when I moved here, it was very, very different. It was all races, all religions. And it was amazing. And that's what I wanted, though. I found that, when I lived in DC for a while, I was like, this is what I need, and this is what I want, and it's what I like. And while it was an adjustment, it was one that I wanted to make. So I was so happy to be here. I was really surprised because my now husband is from this area. We actually met at competing TV stations in Johnstown, and he's not in television anymore. But he was like, if you're going to Virginia, you're going to the South. And in Pennsylvania, we don't consider Virginia the South. We just kind of consider it just Virginia, but we don't consider it the South. And I distinctly remember. Right. And keeping in mind, this is 16 years ago, I was walking through Old Town Portsmouth, which is where our TV station is located. And there was a statue there, and it said, in honor of our beloved Confederate dead. And I called my mom and I said, Mom, they have statues to the Confederacy here. I was blown away. And I know that it's part of history, and I understand Richmond, I get it. Yeah. But I was like, I just did not realize in my naivete, being from where I am from, that in my eyes, I was like, that's the losing side. And they have statues. I was so thrown. I couldn't believe it. So a lot of it was an adjustment. Yeah. and then I made the adjustment. And it has been a really fascinating place to live and to learn and to love and to grow. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And so in what ways, Katie, we really, and I think you and I kind of touched on this a little bit at the event, and that's around community. And again, we focus on community health, being community health centers. And in what ways do you connect with the community that you serve? I know we talked in your intro about how you do like to go and speak with students at local schools, but you connected with our Southeastern Community Health Center. How do you connect with folks?
I think in a number of ways, really. Number one, it's important to be real and to be relatable. I grew up in that really small town. We did not have a ton of money when I was growing up, and kindness goes a long way. And you share your experiences. And yes, I am where I am now, but man, the climb there was quite the journey. So you can, I think it's easy to relate to people in all situations when you have come from where I started to where I am now. So I've seen everything, and, so much, when it comes to, poverty versus wealthy and everything in between. And I've been blessed to be able to tell all of those stories as well. But also, in 2012, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I can also relate to people by, just sharing my story of life with chronic illness and an incurable disease, and the journey and the battle that takes, and the importance of good health care and being able to, for me, thrive with an incurable illness. Thankfully, because I have good health insurance, I don't have to make the choice between paying my mortgage or buying food for my family versus my medical treatment that can be not hundreds of thousands for me, but more than $100,000 a year, not to mention things in between if I need, some adjustments here and there with my health. So I'm able to share that journey with people, and being open about that, I think, has made a really big difference as well. And I'll let people know, they know if they tune into the newscast that, hey, she has a chronic illness and she's there today. And I've had people write me and they're like, I didn't want to get out of bed this morning because I have this illness or this illness. And then I see you on TV and I know, all right, she's doing it. I'm going to do it too. And I think that's so important to be able to do.
I totally agree. We see so many different health situations in our health centers, right? And, you're right. When we look at the folks that come into our health centers, and some of them do have chronic diseases, and at the end of the day, They get up every
Yeah.
day, right? And they do what they need to do in order to make a way for themselves, despite what their health conditions are. And I would say, audience, if you ever get a chance, if you could YouTube Katie, like I said, the amount of energy that comes through, right? Really comes
Thank you.
through. And it comes through not just through you being on TV, but also in person. And I think that makes all the difference, right? And why you're able to connect so well to folks. Katie, as far as unique challenges, right? What kind of unique challenges and opportunities do you face as a journalist in a rural area?
Well, the unique challenges, especially in Hampton Roads, is you are talking to people. Hampton Roads, is made up of 7 cities, and then our viewing area is also some surrounding counties. So there are, I know that we're considered rural, but from where I'm from, these are there's a lot of people here. But there are challenges because you have the wealthiest of the wealthy in some areas, and you truly have the poorest of the poor in others. And there are a lot of people who will say that issue over here does not affect me. Therefore, I'm not going to pay attention, nor is it my responsibility. It is not my fault, and it is not my problem that they're in the situation that they're in. But at the same time, we're sharing these stories to let people know, hey, we're not asking for a handout. No one's asking for a handout, but they are asking for a hand up. And if you could just take a sliver of your so important time to help those in need, here's a story that might inspire you to do so. That's what we're trying to do. But it's challenging on so many levels just because of the differences in class of people that is in this area. But also, I would say over the last several years, there are challenges because there are, and I think this is in every area, but when politics gets involved, it's everyone has to be very far right or very far left. People don't think there's anyone in the middle anymore who wants to come to common ground. And in journalism, right now, over the last few years, there has been a struggle where we've been under attack for believability and truthfulness. And people think we're not telling the truth, and we are. And it's doing so much more harm than good because you're trying to hold the powerful accountable, which also helps those in need. But if people refuse to believe what you're saying because they don't believe facts are facts, it is a big, big challenge.
Really? And thank you so much for sharing that, right? Because where we sit in healthcare, to us, we don't see it as left and right, black and white. We really just look at it as the truth about where a person is relative to their
it's the
health
truth,
care, right?
This is the truth. But so many people are finding, that what's now called alternate facts. But an alternate fact is not the truth. A fact is a fact.
Right.
So that's a huge challenge.
So with that said, then, how do you choose, or the station chooses, what stories to bring to the forefront, right? For us, I will tell you, an audience, this, for those of you that have been listening to us for a while now, again, we want to amplify the voices of those who are served in the community by community health centers. And it's a multitude of people, right? We see anybody and everybody, no matter what their ability to pay is. And it's like you said, we see those who are on the higher income side, and then we'll see some who are on the lower income side. But we don't care about that. The only thing we focus on is that person's health care, right? And so to me, what you're kind of explaining is something very similar in the world of journalism, right? So how do you decide what kind of stories to bring to the forefront?
There are a number of ways. I could take a whole day to explain our process, but we at WAVY are broken up into a couple of areas. We have, first of all, our motto, our slogan is 10 on your side. We are on your side, bringing you information that is important and beneficial to you and your family. We have an investigative unit where they will investigate some of what we call the deeper dives. It may take FOIA-ing information. And for people who don't know what that is you're able to ask for information, request information from different government organizations or local organizations, your city council, it could be the president of the United States, whomever. You can put that request in for what you would like, and you're saying that I'm Freedom of Information Act. I am FOIA-ing this information. And so a lot of people don't know that they can also do that to get the information for themselves. They just don't know how. It's not just media who can do it. Anybody can. But we do it. So we do what people can't do for themselves. And when we're looking at stories, we try to find stories that will, while it will benefit the person that we're telling the story about, it will have that ripple effect that it will impact a lot of people who may not have known that, hey, I could also do this. This is how I can find help for myself. Or this is how I can get out and help others. We also will tell stories, sadly, a lot of people are like, the media just wants to tell crime stories. We don't just want to tell crime stories, but it would be irresponsible to not report if crimes are happening in certain areas, if there's a crime cluster, if there is an issue in an area that we need to focus on. And for example, sadly, just yesterday, we had a 15-year-old shot and killed in one of our cities. And then that was at 2:00 in the morning, Sunday morning. And last night at 7:30, another 15-year-old in a separate city was shot and killed. That's a problem. That is not okay. That's too many. And so we have to also decide how we're going to tell that story. We have 2 teenagers who should be going to school today, dead. So we have to look into that more and be able to share with people the humanity behind it. This is not just homicide number 1 in this city. This is not homicide number 3 in the other city. This 15-year-old had a name, had parents, had friends, had people who loved them. And we have to be able to tell the stories that way as well. So we really try to find stories that will benefit the most people, find stories that will hold the powerful accountable. And that can be from a contractor who promised to put in a pool and didn't finish the job, and now these people are out thousands of dollars, all the way to misuse of funds or mismanagement of funds at much higher levels, whether that be city or state or federal. And we will look into all of those cases. But the stories we want are stories that are truly beneficial. And then also stories that will be uplifting. You can't have murder, death, kill every few minutes. It is important to tell those stories, and it is our responsibility to share that crime is happening so we can try to find a fix or try to find something to help, but also let people know, hey, this is a good reason to get out of the house today and feel motivated and feel empowered because this person in the community did this great thing, and hopefully it'll motivate others to do great things. So we have a lot of different veins out there of storytelling and our reasoning behind why and how we choose our stories.
What would you say in your career has been a story that you did that just really got to you, right? That just really sat with you, and it was a difficult story to talk about. What story out there that just really sat with you, Katie? That you?
Oh boy, I have several that will stick with me. One though, and it was the first time. As a member of the media, we see what the police see. Well, they're the first on the scene. There are times we're the second on the scene. So we'll see a lot of things that are very hard to see, whether it's death or crime. But when I was in Johnstown, there were parents who had been accused of mistreating their children, and the children were living in filth in the home, and the kids were playing hide and seek one day, and the parents fell asleep and took a nap, and they were little boys, and they ended up being trapped in a cedar chest, and they passed away. and because they couldn't get out. So I remember telling the story of the parents, telling the story of the conditions of the home, that was the first time I had experienced seeing a home where there was fecal matter throughout, open trash bags throughout. And I'm thinking, how were these babies raised in this home? And then, and no one did anything about it. No one stepped in, but I don't know that anybody knew, that was going on. And then in the courtroom, they showed a tour of the house, and I was not expecting them to show the children. And they showed them where they discovered them, and they showed them frozen in the position where rigor mortis had set in. So they were these two sweet little boys frozen in time and in the positions of trying to get out, and they couldn't get out. And I just felt like that has always stuck with me, because I felt like that was such a metaphor for their lives. They were stuck in this position and they couldn't get out of it. And that was just how they were growing up, and they didn't know any different. They were stuck in this house. And it's not that their parents, I don't believe that their parents didn't love them, because in court, their parents were devastated. But they were stuck in a situation that none of them could get out of. The parents obviously weren't getting the help they needed. They didn't have the motivation to clean up their house. And who wants to live like that? Who wants to live sitting in fecal matter throughout your home with garbage bags of trash strewn everywhere? So I just felt like it was just one of those situations nobody could get out of. And then it just ended so tragically for the little boys. And I've never forgotten it. And that's also one of the reasons too, I think it's just so important to share people's stories and to be vocal about helping those who need help, or else those little boys would be here today and those parents would be in a better situation too.
And, as I listen to you, an audience, again, this is why we like to bring amplify voices here, everyday voices, because even though Katie is in front of in front of a TV camera, I want people to understand that there is humanity, right? You're bringing humanity. And you talked a little bit about some of the political divisions and, about telling the truth. And I have to say, the media has been getting a lot of bows being, shot at them. Healthcare was the same way, Katie, right? During the pandemic, you had many people questioning healthcare providers, right? And it truly is about the truth and ensuring that we are able to make a difference in somebody's life to keep them healthy or get them healthy, right? And the point I'm trying to make here is that there's a sense of humanity, right? In the work that you're doing and in the work that the community health centers and the providers are doing in their communities, right? And so, audience, I really impose upon you to really, hear what Katie's saying. And that's why I asked you that question is what was that story that really just stood with you, Katie, that you've just not been able to let it go, right? Because the work you do is so incredibly important. But audience, I want you to remember that what Katie does is, it's that, it really is about a sense of humanity in the work that she's doing and in the work that community health centers and providers are doing. Flipping the gears a little bit, I want to go back to kind of the difference between being in a rural setting and being in a larger city. You had done this internship in the DC area. You come down to southeastern Virginia. You're from a mountain area up in the rural part of Pennsylvania. That being said, Katie, what do you think are some of the difference in the storytelling between the rural as well as the larger cities, right? What do you think the difference is?
There is a difference. Now, I can only compare it really to when I lived on Capitol Hill, but I lived on Capitol Hill, so it was really, that was focused on politics. The only big city I've ever truly lived in was Washington, D.C. So it was all politics all the time. And it was back when you could actually have political conversations and learn from one another. Multiple interns in my house worked for the White House, and George W. Bush was the president at the time. So one of the interns worked at the White House. Multiple others worked for senators and congressmen. One worked for the Treasury Department, and I worked for the media. So boy, were we a team of misfits in that house.
Yeah.
But we could sit, Republicans, Democrats, from big cities, from small towns, and we would chat about why we felt this way or why we felt the other, or why this senator or this congressman was doing this, and different things that were coming down the pipeline. And it was so great to be able to have those conversations because you could really truly sit and learn from each other, and you can't do it anymore. You just it's got to be, unfortunately, one way or the other, or you just can't talk politics at all, and it's so frustrating because man, we are missing out on some really important things by not being able to have meaningful political conversation. But that is what I found in Washington, D.C. It was really, truly a lot of politics. And then when I come here, the difference between this area, and again, this is bigger than my first TV station by far. So my first TV station, a lot of our stories were small community based, and there was Conemaugh Health System was there. So we did a lot with Conemaugh, and we would talk about ways to stay healthy. And I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you, but in that area, we did so much with Conemaugh to help people maintain their health and strive for a better lifestyle. There was not a lot of crime in that area. And when it happened, that was the talk of the town for a very long time. Whereas here now in this area, a big focus is the fact that crime is out of control. And we do need to figure out ways to rein it in, and how can we help, and what can be done. And there's, in this area too, and I think it's because there are more people, the news is, it's such a vegetable soup of so many different things. Because here it is, it's, the crime, it is politics, it is health, it is different. We follow all of the city councils. It is mind-boggling to me how much focus we have on on all of the city councils, which is so important. But how many areas across the country do you have the media focused on your city council and what they did, or school boards and what they did that night before? But that is huge in this area. So there are so many people here from so many, in Hampton Roads, from so many different cities because of the Navy and from moving here. And it's a travel destination because of Virginia Beach, that, I mean, honestly, here you pick a topic and we have to be an expert on it by the end of the day, because there are so many different subjects to talk about. Yeah.
Katie, when you and I met, you were the speaker at one of our community health centers, Southeastern Community Health. And I have to ask you, because I'll tell you, when I was there, so many people came up to you, right? So many people from the African American community actually came up to you, and people were saying to you, I love you. I watch you every day. And to me, what struck out in a lot of what I was observing in your interaction with many people at that event was the placehold that you have in that community, in the African American community. And can you talk to me a little bit about your relationship with that community? Southeastern invited you, and predominantly they do see a large African American community. Talk to me about your relationship with the Black community down there in Hampton Roads.
I thank you for your kind words. Number one, that warms my heart. I want to help as many people as I can. And I grew up in a family where we didn't have a lot, but man, we really had love and we loved each other. And I was surrounded by warmth and just glowy joy, happiness growing up. So I was really, really blessed. And I think everybody deserves that. And I get really frustrated. And I had a lot to learn when I came here, coming from an all-white Christian town. My mom is from the Panama Canal Zone. And so I was raised, she went to school with people of all different colors and races and religions. And she came to the States for the first time and left the university she was attending because she was frustrated by the racism because it didn't compute. She didn't grow up with it. It was just, that wasn't how it was in Panama. And my grandfather was a big time baseball coach in Panama. And when he came to the States, a hotel refused his baseball team the ability to stay there because there were Black kids on the team. And my grandpa said, well, then we're not going to stay. And we're just going to pull our reservation for the whole team. Well, the hotel was like, no. Like, fine, you can stay. So they stayed. And that's how I was raised. And it just baffles me. And it never sat well with me that because of skin color or because of hairstyle, people would not get hired or people would lose their jobs. And that doesn't make sense. And if it makes sense to you, you're wrong. That it's just like, it is in that situation. You are wrong if you think that's okay. And I just find it that I have a voice. I have a powerful voice in the community. And yes, we might not be the same skin color, but if I know that I have the ability to help others because I am a white woman who cares about the Black community. And I care about all communities, but I really care about those communities that they really do need someone there who can say, you know what, I got you. I will help you. And if that is how I'm seen here, I'm happy to be that person because I think everybody deserves that. And I'm happy to be here to do it.
And why did you agree to do that work that evening for Southeastern?
Listen, if you don't think that people deserve good quality health care and that would make lives better for so many, then I think we need to have a whole big different conversation. It would be scary to think that you as just in the community don't believe that people deserve to feel healthy and well. And in doing so, they would then be productive and good community members. It is that trickle down effect. And it is your right as a human to have good basic healthcare, just even basic healthcare, just to have healthcare. And so when they asked me to do that, it absolutely 100%. And there was no way I was going to say no to that. Yeah, I am a sucker for children and for people in need. And if you ask me to come out, emceeing an event is the least I can do. You know, I will happily come out and MC an event. And then in doing that, I get to meet more people in the community who have more stories to tell, who are going to help more people. Yeah. And then we can just keep doing more and more and more. And then everyone can truly get up to that equitable level that everybody should be on.
So when you go back to the time that you said, when you told your mom that you wanted to be a journalist, right? And what your motivating factor to coming to that decision at that time, right? To where you are today, would you say that energy, that motivation is still there, or has it evolved to something different?
That's such a good question, Tracy. I still have the energy, but I think that my energy has evolved because when I got into the industry, it was because I loved people and I loved to tell their stories and I loved to meet new people. But 10 years ago, I became a mom, and there is something, and it sounds so corny to say, there is just something about when you become a mom, so much around you changes. It's like you have this whole capacity, new capacity of understanding and of love and of thought, your thought process, everything is different. And being a mom has made me a better journalist. And it has just been the greatest adventure of my life. And so you put the energy that I had from back in the day when I really wanted this to meet new people, and to understand that in meeting new people and in telling their stories, you are truly making a difference in helping people. It's now really the helping people part of it that really motivates me to tell a story. And that is partially because of my kiddo and the world I want him to grow up in. And I so desperately as a parent want to get it right. And I want my kids' generation, if it's not going to be mine, I want my kids' generation to be the one that just breaks all the barriers and like, this generation has it right. And I can be like, you know what? My generation kind of had a hand in that. And that has really evolved my storytelling and the why behind why I do what I do.
So then what would you say to these young kids who are in college and thinking about getting into journalism? What would you say to these aspiring journalists?
You're going to have some tough love. You have to be prepared for challenges because this industry is challenging. And I would say if it is your passion, go for it. Go for it and work hard. But they need to understand the stressors and the challenges that come with journalism. When I started out as a journalist, I had all my student loans. I had an apartment. I had car insurance. I had everything. And I started out making $21,000 a year. Yeah. Right.
Wow.
And that was with a 4-year college degree, a great internship, great references, $21,000 a year. I did not have enough money to buy groceries. And it hasn't gotten much better for journalists starting out. And I actually, at my first TV station, I lost a ton of weight because I didn't have enough money for food. So I was just eating Ritz crackers. I would live on Ritz crackers, a layer of cream cheese, cocktail sauce, and imitation crab meat. It was a dip that we would make that we felt fancy at Christmas time where I'm from. And I ended up living on that for a while. So I went home to visit, and my grandma and grandpa, my mom's mom and dad, were furious that I didn't tell them I was struggling, but I didn't feel like I should be struggling because I was a career woman now making $21,000. So my grandparents bought me groceries, and I would drive home every 2 weeks, and I would take the groceries that they bought me back to my apartment. So the beginning of journalism is very challenging in that you are going to be very exhausted. You are not going to make a lot of money. You are going to work holidays. You are going to work weekends. You're going to work hurricanes and blizzards and tornadoes. You are going to get called in when you are supposed to be off. But if you stick with it, you are going to find the satisfaction and the joy that comes with the outcomes of your stories. And the first time someone says, I saw your story, and because of that story, I got the help I needed. Because of what you shared with me, I know that I can do that as well. And eventually, the money will fall into place. The schedule will fall into place. I still get called in during a blizzard on a weekend, even though I'm supposed to be Monday through Friday, but that's my job. You know, if people have something scary happening in the community, you know, it's scary. I mean, around here, people might be like, oh, it's a hurricane. It's no big deal. But that can be scary for some in this area. Aisha Tolliver, who is my co-anchor, Aisha and I can be that little blanket. So on a Saturday morning, we might come in because we're the voice that people hear the most, and that makes them feel better. So when you get to that point, it is very, very satisfying. So when it comes to people who are thinking about journalism, I say do it. You just have to be prepared for the journey that gets you to the point where I am. Yeah, it takes some time. It definitely takes some time.
And my final thought here is to you, Katie. Was it worth it?
100%. And without that journey, I don't think I would be the person that I am today either. Because I truly, when you make the choice between groceries and your rent, I had to do that. I get that. I did it. And it was a scary choice to make. And I chose rent because I needed the house. I needed the apartment over me. Yeah. But I am able to empathize much more because of that journey. But I'm also able to stand up for myself more because of that journey too. I wasn't just given the job. I don't just sit in a chair and read. I'm involved in the shows. I'm involved in content. I feel confident enough in myself because of that journey to comfortably speak to my bosses and say, I don't think that this is right. I don't feel that this is the right choice. And they respect me enough because I'm not a whiner. I'm not a complainer. They respect me enough to be like, all right, let's have a conversation about that. And that's also a reason that I've stayed, when one of the big things that people think about with journalism is you want to go network. You want to go as high as you can go. And initially I was like, absolutely, I want to go network. Until I got to an area like this at WAVY-TV, and I fell in love with my station and the people that I work with and the people in the community. And I have a job, a career where I have a good schedule. I'm Monday through Friday. That's hard to get in journalism, but I have a good schedule. And it is just such a wonderful place to work. I'm like, why would I give that up to go network where, a lot of times you're going to miss a kid's birthday party because you're getting sent out somewhere else. So because of the journey that I have been on, I realized that for me, my peak, what I always thought was going to be like the tippy top would be network. No, my peak and where I can continue to climb is here, but finding new ways to become a better journalist and then become a better member of the community, because that's really what you are when you're a news anchor, right? You are a member of the community and you are reflecting that community to those who are watching. And if they believe you, if you're truthful and relatable, they're going to come up to you at those events and say, you're my favorite and I love you. And, because you're authentic and they get that and it's real. It's so important to be what you are on TV. You need to be that in real life. You need to be someone that they can trust and want to be friends with and that they're comfortable with. And it's huge. And so the journey that got me to this point is, I think, what made me what I am today.
Wow. Well, I'd like to thank you, Katie, again for joining us today. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning into Common Health. And again, remember, listeners, this is all brought to you by the Community Healthcare Association. It is the association for the community health centers here in Virginia. Katie, thank you. And thank you for continuing to support our health centers. And please continue to take our voice in doing in supporting the work.
Thank you, Tracy. So I will do that for sure. Thanks for having me.
I want to thank my guests for joining me today. And thank you to all the listeners for tuning in to Common Health, brought to you by the Virginia Community Healthcare Association. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support Common Health, I encourage you to hit subscribe button and share it with others on social media. Leave a rating and review or visit our website at www.vcha.org. This is Tracy Douglas Wheeler, and thank you again, and I'll see you next time.